أهلا بكم في المحاضرة الخامسة من علم الدلالة والبراغماتيك. This is your professor Fahad bin Duhaish. Okay, in this lecture we're going to speak about a very specific topic, prototype or prototypes. What does that mean? Well, from the word we're going to speak about types. Yeah, that's kind of clear. But let's go into more details. One fact about concepts expressed by words or phrases is that their members can be graded in terms of their typicality. Okay? What does that mean? Let me explain this with an example. A good example of this involves the concept bird. Bird. Okay, so bird is a concept. We all know birds. We all can think about examples of birds, right? But in every person's mind, bird is a different thing. Are you thinking about a pigeon, a falcon, eagle, a chicken? They're all birds, right? So, what's going on here? We usually assume that, we all think of a bird as an animal. Well, of course, yeah. That lays eggs, has feather, and can fly. We still feel that some of these creatures are more bird-like than others. Okay, let me just break this down. Some birds are good examples of birds, okay? And some birds are like, not really sure. For example, would you think about penguin as a bird? It's actually a bird. See, you sometimes do not think about penguin as the first example of birds that comes to your mind. You're probably going to think about a pigeon or a falcon because you live in Saudi Arabia, for example, right? Okay. While the words canary, dove, duck, flamingo, parrot, and robin are all equally co-hyponyms of the subordinate bird, we learned that. Subordinate bird, co-hyponyms, all these types, right? They are not all considered to be equally good examples of the category bird. There is a difference between, for example, a dove and a flamingo, a parrot and a robin, okay? The picture here, by the way, is the picture of a robin. Robin. According to some researchers, the most characteristic instance or example of the category bird is robin. This idea is known as prototype. So we say the prototype of birds is robin, which means when I ask people out there to give me an example of a bird, okay, and most of these studies happened maybe in Western countries like United States and the UK, for example. So when you ask people out there and ask them, what is the first example of a bird that comes to your mind? They would say robin, a red robin, for example. Robin is a good example of bird. Maybe it's the best example of bird, or it's the first example that comes to my mind about birds, okay? It could be different, we can argue. Like in Saudi Arabia, I would think, for example, a falcon is the best example of a bird, maybe, okay? So we get influenced by the environment, but based on these studies, the most characteristics example of category or concept bird was robin. Robin. So when you ask them, give me an example of a bird, they would say robin. Okay? Not a penguin, not a chicken, not a dove, for example, not a flamingo. Okay? You know, a flamingo that has a long legs and stuff, right? they would think about Robin. Okay. The concept of a prototype, now we said the prototype is basically the best example that comes to your mind. So the concept of a prototype helps explain the meaning of certain words, like for example bird, not in terms of semantic features. We're not thinking here like our definitions that, oh, something that has feathers or has wings, but in terms of resemblance to the clearest example. So, the clearest example in our minds, okay, or based on this study on people's minds, of a bird is a robin. Next comes whatever closer in shape to the robin, okay? So if we can put them, grade them on a scale, we would think robin, then something maybe else that looks like a robin, but penguin is different than a robin, so it could be at the end of the scale, like very far from the robin. You following me? Okay, thus, even native speakers of English might wonder if ostrich, for example, ostrich or penguin should be hyponyms of birds. Like when you ask them, do you think penguin is a bird? They might just pause for a minute. They're not sure if it's a good example of birds. But have no trouble, for example, deciding about sparrow or pigeon. Why? Because sparrow and pigeon look like robin. They're very close in shape. Look at the pictures here in the slide. Okay, so this is a sparrow and this is a pigeon. Both of them are very close in shape and form and body form to the robin. Look at the penguin and the ostrich, right? They are kind of very different from a robin. So you would most likely not think about them as the best examples or the first examples that would come to your mind about birds. Give me an example of a bird, pigeon. Give me an example of a bird, sparrow. You would not think penguin as a bird or ostrich as a bird. Okay? So we call this concept or theory a prototype. Prototype. Okay? The following is the chart showing the prototype of a bird based on the judgments of California undergraduates. So this study was done in 2005 with the help of students, undergraduates in California. They thought about these birds as the prototype. So robin probably in the end, in the center. And after that, the more close in shape that bird is to robin, the closer in the scale is. So dove, canary, you can see here sparrow are kind of come secondary to robin. Okay, you see parrots, okay, and other type of birds coming after that. You see a duck, for example, coming on the fourth stage or fourth circle. You see a penguin and ostrich coming at the basically the end of the ranking, very far from the center. So you would not think about them as good examples about birds. Okay? So we call this whole idea prototype. Prototype. Okay. All right. So what is prototype then? Prototype is about this mental representation of meaning or characterization. Okay? Whatever comes to your mind, okay, is the prototype. So if we're defining, like we said, a bird, that's an animal that has feathers, grows from an egg and can fly, and also that makes sounds and so on. When I ask you if an ostrich or a penguin is a bird, chances are high that you would say yes. While they don't fit the definition, they don't have, like penguin does not have feather, ostrich cannot fly, okay? So, this is where prototypes come into play. What we are dealing with is a gradual characterization, gradual, of meaning within an instance or an example of representation of birds, okay? Right. So enough about birds. Let's think of another example. Okay. Look around you in your room. There is a door, right? A door. Okay. What would be a prototype of a door? So a prototype is this object or referent that is considered typical of the whole set. So what is typical? What is the prototype of door in your mind? If you look around you in the room right now, or if you think about door in isolation just in your mind, you would immediately think of a door swinging on hinges, right? Hinges, like these. The joints that hold the door. Just the kind of regular door that we have in our houses. Okay. That kind of door is for you the prototype of all doors. If you think of a door, you think the one that has a handle and swings. Okay? Handle, a lock, and a swings. That's the door that comes first to your mind. So we call this the best example, or best exemplar, or prototype. Okay. But not everybody is likely to have the same prototype of a particular set. Here the particular set is a door. Okay? If you live in a tent, you would understand what I mean. The door to you is basically a piece of clothes that you can raise or bring down. That's the door of the tent. When I say, hey, would you close the door? You would just close that part of the tent. Okay. You would not think about the doors that slides, like in the mall. When you go to the mall, the glass will slide. That's actually a door. You would not think of that, right? You would not think of a door that rotates, like when you go to a hotel, for example. A lot of good 5-star hotels have a door that rotates. Okay, or revolving door, we call it. Okay, where you basically enter and walk, and you would be inside the hotel. Okay, so although this is still a door, but you would not think about it as the best example of door. You will not think about these doors that slide as best examples of doors, or the door of a tent, okay, as the best example of a door. Okay. Moving on, another example. If I give you the category furniture, what would come to your mind? An example of furniture, you would think chair, for example, right? Chair. You would think of a chair before you think of bench or a stool. This is a chair, this is a stool. Stool is basically the chair that does not have a back or arms, okay? Or a bench, the long chair that we usually find in gardens and parks, okay? Or at the mall, bench, okay? Or sometimes at the playground, they have a bench, okay? So you would not think about this. So when I say a prototype of furniture or the best example of furniture, you would think chair. Okay. When I say a best example or prototype of clothes, you probably think about shirts quicker than shoes, although they are still in that scale or that ranking of clothes. So shirts would be in the center, but maybe shoes would be very far from the center. They're all examples of clothes. We're talking about the grades. What is in the middle? What would be the best thing or the first thing you would think about? It would be shirts more than probably shoes, or tie as piece or example of clothes. When I tell you vegetables, for example, you might think of carrot. Before you think about potato and tomato, they would be kind of comes next in that scale. Okay? All right. With that, I come to the end of my 5th lecture. We spoke about prototypes, and we said that prototypes are basically the objects that would be the best examples or the quicker examples that come to your mind. After that best example comes the very close or closer examples to that. If that example does not have a lot of resemblance to the center, it would be far, far. We spoke, for example, about penguin being not a prototype or a typical example of birds. We spoke, for example, about shoes not being the prototype or best typical example of clothes. Or, for example, potato as the best example of vegetables. Okay? So this theory helps us understand what's going on in our mind. What's the mental presentation of entities in the world? Okay? I hope that was clear, and I'm looking forward to talking to you in our next lecture, lecture 6. Good luck. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.